Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be assembling my car lift. A few weeks ago, I did a video on how to disassemble the Advantage lift, and I did that in the warehouse, and now that it has moved up here to my house garage, I'm going to have to reassemble it. The first things I need to do is rearrange the components of the lift, because I need to have them in the correct location, because I have no space in here to move things around. So unlike the warehouse where I have lots of space and I can assemble the lift wherever I wanted, I need to have all the parts laid out in the proper locations before I start the assembly process here. The main components I need to pre-position are the posts and the cross arms, but I'm also going to move the lighter of the two ramps and get it positioned in a better place so that when I'm ready to attach it onto the post and cross arms, I can quickly lift it up and be more or less already in the location I need it to be, and I don't have to do a lot of movement because again, I don't have a lot of space in this garage to do a lot of movement with any of the pieces. The first step of the assembly process is to get the cross arms onto the posts. The easiest way to do this is to lay the posts down and then slide the cross arm down each of the posts one at a time. Use a glide block to hold the safety latch out of the way as you slide the cross arm down onto the post. Once you reach the desired height on the post, pull the glide block out of the way to allow the safety latch to fall into place. The instructions recommend notch 5 on the post. I prefer to use notch 3. Just like with the disassembly process, you're going to need multiple people to assemble the lift. So at minimum you need 2 people, and on the high end you'll probably want 4 to play it really safe. For me, I happen to have the whole family here today, so my wife is handling the camera portion, although she did occasionally help out with holding some pieces during the process. And then for the actual assembly portion, my dad and my mom are helping me get the pieces on for these heavier components that are difficult to handle with just 2 people. Once a cross arm is onto both of its respective posts, you can then stand the entire unit assembly up and then add the glide blocks around each of the post members so that they can't move around into those cross arms, and there's no risk of the cross arm safety latch accidentally falling out of place and dropping down to a lower setting on the post. Once the 4 glide blocks have been added to each of the posts, go ahead and secure them in place using the little metal brackets. These only take 1 screw a piece and they'll hold everything in so that you don't have any issue of having a glide block come out of place and then having the post start to wiggle around on you. Now that both the front and the back post and cross arm assemblies are fully assembled, it's time to add a ramp. I'm going to start by attaching the lighter of the 2 ramps. This is the ramp that doesn't have any of the metal cables coming out of it and doesn't have the heavy hydraulic piston underneath it that adds probably at least another 100 pounds to the ramp. Getting the first ramp onto the cross arms is probably the most difficult and dangerous part of the entire assembly process, and we're having 3 to 4 people on hand to be able to assemble is definitely going to increase the safety level you have in the process. My primary safety concern here is the cross arms and the posts. The posts are more than capable of standing up on their own thanks to their wide base plate. Combined with the cross arm attaching both of them, they're both very heavy and very stable on their own, but a hard enough hit caused by, say, the ramp bumping into it could cause it to tip over. And this is where the safety concern number 2 comes in: raising the ramp and having it perfectly balanced in the strap. Even if you get the ramp perfectly balanced in the strap, as you lift it up, the sheer length of it is going to cause it to swing around a little bit. Now, if you have one strong person on a single end, they can control that. Preferably have one person on each end and you won't have any issues with the ramp moving on you. Once I got the ramp set down to both of the cross arms, I installed the bolts and then screwed the nuts down, but I didn't tie them up all the way. I wanted to leave a little bit of space so that there was still a little bit of wiggle room on the cross arms themselves and the ramp, just in case things weren't perfectly aligned as I go to drop the second ramp into place. A little tip before raising the other ramp that happens to have the cables underneath it: go ahead and zip tie those together and zip tie them to something underneath that will get them out of the way so that they're not in the way as you try to get the engine hoist underneath, or they won't kind of come out the sides there and get in your way as you put the strap around it and have it scratch up your ramp. So for getting the second ramp into place, you really just want to repeat the same process you did on the first ramp. Of course, this time will be a little bit easier since the control arms and the posts are already tied together with that first ramp, so they're not going to go anywhere on you. But with the second ramp, because it has that hydraulic piston underneath, it is quite a bit heavier. You'll need to offset the engine hoist a little bit, so you don't want it directly on center because it's not going to lift it perfectly balanced. So you're going to want to offset it a bit towards the hydraulic piston underneath so that when you lift it up, it will be balanced in the strap. Now that both ramps are in place, I'm going to go ahead and go around and secure all the bolts by using the impact gun to make sure they are fully tightened down. Now that the large heavy object assembly process is complete, it's time for all the small lots of adjustment part of the process. The first thing I need to do is to put the 3 lock linkage rods into the underside of the ramp. And then I need to connect them using the couplers, and then once they are all connected, I need to set them in place by running the lock nuts down until they touch the couplers. This will prevent them from unscrewing from each other at that point. The key part to this entire lock linkage assembly process is to ensure that the T-handles at the front and the back of the linkage rods are vertical or as close to vertical as possible during this assembly. If they are not vertical, then when you run the ramp up and down, the locks may not engage all at the same time, so you won't get a nice uniform clicking sound of all 4 locks hitting into the posts all at the same time. If you do have issues during the assembly of the lock linkage, mainly trying to get those T-handles vertical, go ahead and get them assembled as best you can. You can come back after everything else is done and make fine-tune adjustments. It's not going to cause any problems. So if you start to get frustrated, maybe the heat's getting to you, if it's a hot day or something, just get everything done, come back when you're fresh, make those fine-tune adjustments. So long as you don't put a car on the lift until those adjustments are done, it's not going to be unsafe. Now it's time to route the cables through the pulleys and install them into the top caps. Make sure to route the steel cable through the pulley that is currently covered up by the black metal cover on the cross arm, and then you need to route it onto the inside of the pulley that you can currently see in the frame that is sticking out above the metal cover. The last 2 things I need to do is to attach the hydraulic tank and the motor to the metal bracket, and then I need to attach the bracket to the top of the post. Technically, you can do either one of these, whichever is easiest or whichever you prefer. For me, since I have hydraulic fluid in the tank, I figured it'd be easiest to just attach it to the metal bracket and then pick up the entire unit at that point. And since it does have that top of the bracket has its ability to sit on top of the post, and there's only 2 screws up there that need to be screwed in, I figured that would be the easiest way to go about it rather than trying to hold the hydraulic tank in the air while putting 4 screws into the metal bracket. Now that everything is assembled, I'm going to hook up the power. I'm going to raise up the ramps to get it out of its current locked in setting, and then I'm going to drop it all the way down to the floor. This will help allow the lift to kind of align itself on the post properly, and then I'm going to run it up as high as I can, and I'm going to test the locks during that process. So as I raise the lift up, I'm going to listen to the locks and hear if they all engage at the same time. As the cross arms move up the post, all 4 locks are supposed to drop into each of the notches at the same time. So you should hear one loud clunk basically, and that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing multiple clunks. So that means I need to make some adjustments to the linkage assembly. And I mentioned earlier in the video, if you're having difficulty during that assembly process trying to get it perfect, go ahead and just get it assembled and then make your fine-tune adjustments at the end, which is what I had to do, because once I ran the lift up, I knew for sure that the adjustments weren't perfect. While the lift is fully assembled, I still have 2 things I want to do. I need to get my jack back onto the ramps, and since this thing weighs nearly over 300 pounds, I'm going to let the ramps do all the heavy lifting for me. So I'm going to get in position, and then I'm going to raise the ramps up. That will grab onto the jack, lift it off of the rollers I have it on. Then I just pull the rollers out from underneath it and put the ramps back down, and everything's good. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to raise it up and put it on its wheels so I can move it around. I want to get it a little bit better positioned in the garage. I can move a few more inches to the side and to the back, and then put the black rubber mats I have underneath it to protect the garage floor and just help it balance itself a little bit better on the floor, since the floor is a bit uneven. All right guys, that concludes the assembly process for an Vantage lift. If you guys like this video, then please give me a thumbs up, click the subscribe button, leave some comments down below, and I will see you next time on the DIY Grunt.